You know, there's an old Buddhist proverb that says pain is inevitable. Everyone's going to experience it, but suffering is optional. So you do have a way out. But tell that to the guy at the gym who's just twisted and turned his back the wrong way. He needs a treatment plan. He needs to find a doctor, and he needs it fast. It's not enough to find a doctor who can locate your pain. It's a doctor who can find your pain. And if you've experienced pain, you know what I'm talking about. And with me today is Dr. Jeff Buchalter, whose resume basically is 10 pages long and reads like a Britannica encyclopedia. I won't bore you with all of those credentials, but we will talk about those. Dr. Buchalter, thank you. You know, you've really revolutionized the standard of pain care in my world, for sure. And I think, quite frankly, along the Gulf Coast. How do you think that you've been able to do that?
That is an incredibly insightful and interesting question, because pain management, pain medicine, which is basically a subspecialty of anesthesiology, is a relatively new field. It began in the mid-90s, really, and myself and my partner were very blessed to have been associated with one of the founding fathers of pain medicine, which led us into this field and allowed us to continue to expand our interventional techniques, our comprehensive approach to care. And by doing that over the last 28 years, we've been very, very fortunate to have developed a very good practice, which helps many, many patients, and is very, very rewarding.
Now, a lot of people have this misnomer that pain management's just this kind of offshoot of like general practice medicine. And you are a board certified anesthesiologist. Now, you're certified in many other areas as well, but you are a board certified anesthesiologist and in pain medicine as well, which
Correct.
is a subspecialty of anesthesiology. Explain a little bit about the training that goes into this and how you actually were enticed into this field.
Certainly. So you are correct. It is in general a subspecialty that occurs after you've completed your residency training in anesthesiology. And in our basic background, we were introduced to anesthesiology at the Baylor College of Medicine, where I did my residency. And at that residency training program, Dr. Raj, who is one of the foremost authorities in pain medicine, was the chairman of the Pain Fellowship Training Division. So we were able to rotate with him during our residency. And after seeing how he took apart patients individually, dissected what was causing their pain, came up with a treatment plan for them, it was so gratifying to see patients come in with long-term pain, leave happy, healthy, more restored in their energy, and it made us feel like this was a great field for us. So that's how we got into pain medicine, and we've been doing it ever since, and it's just been an incredibly gratifying and rewarding field.
Well, I'm going to put my glasses on because I have to be able to read all of your credentials. May I?
Certainly.
So, you know, I marveled as I've been talking to some of your colleagues, your coworkers, your patients, and you are not only a patient's doctor, and we'll get more, and we'll go into that a little bit more, but you're a doctor's doctor. You treat spinal surgeons here along the Gulf Coast. You've treated other chiropractors. You've treated other surgeons, spine surgeons. You are a noted educator and a speaker. You're affiliated with, is it Florida State?
It's Florida State and University of Central Florida
and UCF?
Medical Schools.
So you speak all over. You have had a full hip replacement yourself as an athlete and a competitive bodybuilder.
Correct.
So you understand pain kind of from every angle. And you know what I always like to tell people, you kind of co-wrote the book on SRRM. And so what is SRRM?
I'm not sure. No, tell me, what do you mean?
Spine-related regenerative medicine.
Oh, wow. She knows more than I do.
Okay,
about
so
this.
let me back up. We'll start right from there.
Okay. So
I'll go back. Let me go back with so you and okay.
Well,
no, just stay
so
there.
the book though is actually on
It's the
disc-related pain disorders.
Oh, okay, disc-related pain disorders.
Right.
Okay, all right. So let me start there.
Okay. SSRM.
Stay seated,
Okay,
kind of the
yeah.
same way. Okay. And so you co-authored. Let me start at that again. And so you co-authored a textbook on disc-related injuries. Tell me about that.
You know, throughout my career, I've had several goals, one of which is to develop a wonderful practice, which we have. Another was to be an author and why, I'm not sure. And I didn't realize how hard it was. But yes, I was fortunate to be asked to co-author a textbook. And in fact, it's the only textbook that is published today on specifically disc-related spine injuries or pain coming from the disc itself. And it took 2 years to co-author that textbook, but it was an incredible experience because I was able to research all the literature, and I used that textbook really throughout my entire practice on a daily basis. And I'm done with the book publishing and writing. It's very hard, but it was very, very incredible experience.
You know, you've built a practice. You go through the training. You partnered with a good partner, Dr. Fairley, up front. Then you started building this practice, and then you began the process of mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how that has become an integral part of your practice and kind of your mission.
Yeah, that's great. So mentoring to me is one of the most important parts of the practice. After you've established a practice and you've got a patient following and you're doing great from a patient care perspective, I felt I needed to give back to my specialty. And what I do is I mentor pre-medical students, I mentor medical students, I mentor residents, and now I'm mentoring people who are in training and have completed their training and join our practice. And it keeps you alive and invigorated, and actually, you know, it puts you on the spot because you have to basically know what you're doing. And I don't have a big ego. So when we train, I love getting information from others saying, hey, you know, have you ever thought about this, or how about doing this? So it's always a learning experience for a physician. I mean, it's the practice of medicine because you are practicing and in continuing to improve your expertise. I feel like I'm better today than I was last year, and I will continue to improve my skill set, my techniques, and expand upon the treatments I have for my patients.
You know, you have to be living in a cave or under a rock somewhere if you haven't heard of Dr. Jeff Buchalter and Dr. Buchalter's bedside manner. Over and over and over again, not only have your patients said things like, Dr. Buchalter, I'm for sure, I'm his favorite patient. He makes me feel that special.
Yep.
And but then I marveled at Dr. Garrett and and Dr. Griffey, all of your colleagues who speak so highly of you, and that you really have made them better people, not just better doctors. How do you, I mean, can compassion, care, concern be learned in a classroom? Can that be learned, or is that something that there should be more of, more mentoring from physicians and trying to convey that to the patient care?
I think it's lacking in a lot of physician practices, partially because of the demands placed on the physician. In my practice, I just can't imagine going into a room and not shaking the hand of a patient, getting involved with them just from a personal perspective, giving them a hug. And also the spin-off from that is I get a lot of desserts. I saw my cheesecake yesterday. I get caramels. So, but you know, I treat patients like I would treat my family members. And I tell them, I say, hey, if you were my sister or my mother or my son, this is what I would do. And, you know, I think that it's conveyed in their like for me and my like for them. I think it's mutual.
We often joke about your being driven. So that's another common thread. All of your coworkers and colleagues say he's driven. He's driven. I think it was one of your assistants who worked with you formerly, and she said, you know, I graduated myself from Buchalter University. If I enrolled in Buchalter University, what kind of courses would you teach?
So one of the courses that we do require our leaders is the John Maxwell course. Now that is a real course. That's a course on leadership, because being a good leader is really having the capability of teaching others to be good leaders. And so in my approach to physician-to-physician interactions, staff to physician interactions and my administrative team is to make them the best leaders that I can make them. And, you lead by example. I mean, yes, I do come in very early, and I love always being in the first car in the parking lot. I think it's important to set that example. And my employees or our employees and staff seem to excel based on the fact that they are given a good toolage from us. And we set a good foundation. We have a core foundation here that is very solid. It's based on ethics and integrity and compassion, and I think it's conveyed throughout the entire practice, and it's critical. So those would be, very important core values to instill as a mentor and as a teacher. And I think that I live the life, and it spins off onto them as well.
Backing up just a little bit throughout your life, what has motivated you the most?
Wow, that's an interesting one. So motivating me includes my family. And what I mean by that is that, you want to be a good father figure, you want to be a good husband, and you want to basically set a good example. So I think that the fact that I am someone who is up early, I'm on time for things, I get projects done that I say I'm going to get done when I say I'm going to get them done, sets a good example for the family. And it also, like I said, sets an example for the workers that we have as well. So I think that is a big part of it.
We talk about the fact that Dr. Raj inspired you. What was it about Dr. Raj's methodology with the patient personally that, set something aflame in you?
So what's interesting about that question is when you go into anesthesiology, the last thing you're thinking about is long-term patient care. Okay, so you go into anesthesiology because you like to do the interventions. You love to have the quick development of rapport with a patient quickly. You put the IV in, you put them to sleep, you get them completely pain-free. The surgery's over, you go to the recovery room, you
wake them
up, right, and then you discharge them and you go to the next patient. So anesthesiologists by nature don't go into the field of pain medicine as an initial thought process, at least back in the 90s.
Right.
However, because Dr. Raj was the chairman of the department, and he basically was the premier person in pain medicine and had just a way about him of interacting with patients and immediately developing rapport with the patients. He surrounded himself with a multidisciplinary team and could get to the source of these patients' pains. They've been suffering for years, not knowing what was causing their pain. He would get in there, talk to them, never was in a hurry, found the source of the problem, would do an intervention on them to shut down the pain nerves, and then would treat them comprehensively. And we saw patients that were coming in with 20 years of pain, going out happy, functional, and we were both, myself and my partner, Dr. Fairley, said, wow, this is really incredible.
And it works.
And it works.
Yeah.
And so, I was fortunate enough to be accepted to the subspecialty fellowship with Dr. Raj. And there
Which was pretty competitive, I understand.
Yeah, there was only 4 fellows accepted, and there could have been hundreds and hundreds applying. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was very, very, it was a life-changing experience, and really set the groundwork for where I'm at today, because Dr. Fairley, when he finished his training and I finished my training, I had received an offer for a position in San Diego at a very large anesthesia group. He had received a position in North Carolina in a large anesthesia group, and we both said to ourselves and talked to Dr. Roger, and he said, go ahead and just start your own practice. Now that's scary to do.
Sure.
But we did it, and we have been together ever since. And believe it or not, we've had houses next door to each other ever since we've basically been in practice until the last few years. So it's been fun to have a partner who you trust completely, who has
totally different personalities.
Totally different personalities. And actually, he is the business guy and knows all about the numbers and the money and the this and the that. I don't really even look at that stuff. I get involved with the academic side. So that, and he cares about it, but he lets me do everything in that regard. So it works out perfectly, very symbiotic, and it's been wonderful.
It's been a wonderful relationship.
Yep.
So, you know, we talked about, before we go to a break, we talked about a multidisciplinary approach in interventional medicine. What does that mean to the patient?
Everything. And the reason it means everything is that we have the capability in our practice to identify what is the source of the pain. So in 90% or more patients, we can figure out where the pain is coming from. We then need to go ahead and find out what is continuing to initiate the pain generator. And that requires a good comprehensive rehab approach. We have a chiropractic division. We have acupuncturists that work with us. And taking everything and putting it all together allows us to not only eliminate the pain, but prevent the pain from returning. And that is needed in patients, and it's a comprehensive approach that allows that to occur.
We're going to take a break and take a listen to what several of your mentees had to say, so stay around.